Sky's been on the island for over 60 days now. Ordo, not much less than that. The two in that time have become close friends. At first it was the story of Sky trying to get off this island, but now it seems like the two are in it together, and it's unlikely that either is going to leave the other behind. It's terrible luck to get stranded on such a small island, but at least the two of them get along so well. Imagine being stuck on an island like this with someone you absolutely couldn't stand being around. These two seem to at least enjoy each other's presence. Must make life at least slightly more bearable here. The two were out for a bit of peaceful morning fishing when they heard a terrifying noise coming from out in the water. Squeaks. Lots of them. They made their way inside as a group of guinea pigs began to swarm the island. They're clearly hungry for human flesh. After a guinea pig gets a taste for human meat, they get the hunger and they're never the same again. Come to think of it, it seems likely these guinea pigs already ate a human on another island, and then began swimming around looking for more people to eat. Obviously. While that was happening, a quest for a paid volcanic winter has popped up. They're offering a reward for just 12 days. Oh, yes please. Let's grab that plasteel and jade. And maybe it'll push the guinea pigs off the island. The cacti will grow a bit slower, but otherwise the reduced sunlight isn't going to really affect much. The two survivors are going to be stuck inside for a while, but it shouldn't be too terrible, other than the potential for mood breaks. At least they can keep fishing in the corner. For now, they're stuck inside anyway, so the volcanic winter is not going to really affect them much. Well, maybe it was the volcanic winter, or maybe they just got bored, but the guinea pigs have made their way off the island. Sky and Ordo can safely go back outside again. And there are a couple cacti that are ready to harvest. That's good timing. More wood means more progress. Sort of. The volcanic winter is still in effect, but it appears now that it's not having a massive effect on the cacti popping up. And they're getting large enough to chop down pretty quickly. That's good news at least. Well, the peace did not last long. Two raiders from the Kinroar of Shagan have arrived. Kinroar seems a bit on the nose. On the snout? Anyway, do you think the Edikine shake off like a dog when they get out of the water? Or do they just walk around with soaking wet fur? Well, one of them brought a machine pistol, so we're going to need to be careful not to get murdered by that thing. The first one went right for cover, but they took so much damage that they immediately died after reaching it. The other one tried to chase down the survivors, but they didn't have much of a chance once they were alone. A few more days have passed, consisting mostly of fishing and conversations between Sky and Ordo. They've become quite good friends by now, and they get along quite well with one another, even though they have deeply conflicting ideologies. It would be nice to convert Ordo soon. Her ideology isn't well suited for life on the island, but there's not really a convenient way to convert her quite yet. We could potentially imprison her and convert her that way, but that's going to have to wait. Well, unfortunately, toxic fallout has settled into the area, meaning they're going to have to spend their time inside again, and the cacti aren't really going to grow for a while. They did manage to get a small stockpile of meals before the fallout started, but that's only going to last a couple days, so they're going to have to keep fishing inside the hut while it lasts. Luckily, for some reason, the fallout doesn't affect fish. Realistically, it seems like it should, but I'm sure these two are glad to have the food source. At least they managed to get the one last cactus before the plants all died off. They're also still dealing with the volcanic winter, but that seems a bit irrelevant at this point in time. After just 6 days of fallout, the worst of it is past and the survivors are able to go outside once again. A couple alpaca wandered by looking for shelter from the fallout, and they managed to hide under the roof until the worst of it passed. Unfortunately, the island is completely void of grass, and now the alpaca aren't going to be able to survive long. There isn't much choice other than just eating them. At least the leather will end up being useful. Let's get that fire going again and we can cook up this meat. Oh, that's just great. Gill rot has spread through the water surrounding the island. Maybe this is a result of the fallout seeping into the water. Maybe it's completely random. Well, it is completely random, but the survivors don't know that. They're going to have to be careful how much fish they harvest in the near future. Otherwise, they're going to run out of food. It's likely there'll still be plenty of fish for 2 ponds, but let's still be careful. Oh, hold that thought. Chocolate has just rained down from the sky. That should help quite a bit with the food issue. At least for a little while. And plus that slag's going to be incredibly useful later. But unfortunately, it's going to be a long time until we get a smelter going. We can store the slag in the water for later. That's going to at least clear up some space on the island. Several quiet days have passed without incident, but suddenly, the two heard a loud whistling sound above their heads. They rushed outside to see a fireball flying through the sky. Only a moment later, it crashed directly on the island. They must have been truly desperate to aim for an island out in the middle of nowhere to crash. Still better than sinking into the middle of the ocean. They must have been incredibly surprised to find 2 people already living on the island. The survivors helped them from the wreckage, only to be surprised by several tribals swimming up to the island looking to salvage whatever they could. Along with the Imperials, the survivors managed to fend off the tribals. They were optimistic that as a reward, the Imperials would allow them on their shuttle to rescue from this terrible island. But when the shuttle landed, they boarded and locked the doors behind them, flying off, refusing to help the survivors. Turns out, they aren't willing to help anyone who isn't part of the Empire. Iguanas have tried invading the island again. That's perfect because the survivors need more leather to try to make a duster. After clearing out the iguana, they finally accumulated enough leather. Sky turned the various leathers into patch leather, and then she began working on the duster. A day of hard work passed, and finally Sky finished work on the new clothing. It's not great, but it's absolutely better than what Order was already wearing. Now both of them have at least a moderate amount of protection from the heat. A war merchant has arrived at the island. It's still unclear how these caravans are arriving at the island at all. Are they swimming? Are they leaving their boats deeper in the water? Let's go with the latter. It makes more sense than swimming across a wide expanse of ocean. They're either too selfish to rescue the survivors without a substantial reward, or there's just not enough room in the boats. Let's see what we can trade to them at least. A couple extra weapons, that sentience catalyst, and some gold. That'll at least net a bit of food for the survivors. Sky and Order spend most of their time chatting with each other and fishing, which doesn't actually sound that bad at all. At least they're good friends now. Recently they've been talking about palm trees. That's awkward. They missed the palm tree that was chopped down earlier in the story. Sorry folks, that thing is never coming back. Hopefully you like cacti just as much. Let's go ahead and start working on a bridge so we can build another room for the research bench and more storage. Bridges are awfully expensive, but it's really the only way we can hope to expand without taking up space. Space that the cacti need to grow. The Breaksos tribe has approached the island again, hoping to loot the supplies and kidnap the survivors. Yeah, it's 4 of them. Shouldn't be too terrible. The first one dropped almost immediately. These machine pistols are fantastic against unarmored targets. The second one died quickly as well, but the last one is determined. They kept chasing, but she was finally taken down. Oh, that's rough. Now she's floating out in the water. Maybe we should at least tend to her wounds. First, let's take that tribal for later. Now we can tend to her wounds. More cargo pods have landed on the island. Once again, that slag is going to be incredibly useful later on, but for now, it's just going to have to sit out in the water. May as well grab 2 of these face masks and get rid of the rest of them. One of the face masks crashed right through the roof, so Sky's going to have to fix that. That must have been a bit startling when that happened. Well, we can't have a hole in the roof, so let's get that fixed. And already another shuttle is crashing down on the island. This reinforces the fact that there's just nowhere else to land anywhere near here. It's also starting to raise some questions. How are these shuttles being shot down? Is there an asteroid field up there? Or are they having trouble navigating it? Difficult to say. At least this is more steel and we desperately need it. And of course, raiders have arrived again, likely wanting to pick through the wreckage. This time it's not tribal, so they're going to be slightly more dangerous. Let's go ahead and use these Imperials as a distraction. They can draw the gunfire. There we go. Now we just need to clean up all this. After waiting over 100 days, a bulk goods trader has finally arrived. Not only that, but it's brought steel. Finally. It's about time. All the patience has finally paid off. Let's get rid of all these leathers and the excess clothing. For all these items, we can get 160 steel. That's going to be absolutely massive. First and foremost, it's going to allow us to build our first research bench. Then we can begin progressing through the tech tree. Awkwardly, we now have the steel, but we don't have the wood. Probably shouldn't have used all the wood on bridges. Looks like we have no choice but to start removing bridges. Well, there is a choice. We could just wait for cacti to grow, but do our survivors have time for that? Of course not. Let's also use some of the steel to build a stove, so that we can finally start cooking more frequently. They're still going to need wood for fuel, but at least it won't continuously burn like the fire does. Hopefully over time, it consumes a little bit less. There's still the looming question of whether or not we can harvest enough wood to keep it going, but we'll have to give it a shot to find out. After removing all the bridges, we now have enough wood for the research bench. And now it's built. Fantastic. This really feels like a massive milestone that we've achieved. First off, we need to research tree sowing. We can't actually plant trees on the island, but what we can do is place bonsai pots around the island and grow bonsai trees. They'll still produce 1 or 2 wood per day per pot. Over time, that's going to produce a fair bit of wood. Later on, when we get electricity, we can move all the pots inside, but for now, they're going to have to be placed outside. Not long after that, another trader has arrived. This time it's an exotic goods trader. Unfortunately, there's not much we can trade here, but we can get rid of all this plasteel, trade it for some components. The plasteel could be used for walls, but the components are going to be a bit more important, and ultimately just as difficult to come across. And now some ducks have swam up to the island. We certainly can't sustain a massive flock of them, but we should be able to at least keep 2 or 3 on the island. The eggs will provide a fair bit of food to the survivors over time. It'll be nice to actually use the grass to turn into usable food through the ducks. Already another bulk goods trader has arrived at the island. We won't be able to get much from them this time, but we do have a few leathers to trade. Let's see how much wood we can get for it. Well, 35 wood's not terrible. And the Brexos tribe is at it again. Three raiders have come with bows. They must have not heard back from the last group that attacked, or they might have come a bit better prepared. Ordo took a shot to the arm, but otherwise the survivors made it through the raid without much issue. Let's tend to the wounds of the raiders, just to get a little bit more medical XP for the survivors. Another shuttle has crashed on the island. This is becoming a frequently recurring event. Maybe it's some sort of Bermuda Triangle type situation for shuttles. Well, no, not likely, but something is going on. After their previous experiences, the survivors are less inclined to help the Empire now that they know they're not going to be helped in return. But they do need to salvage the resources from the shuttle, so they decided to help fight off the raiders to secure the resources for themselves. Sky and Ordo have been chatting with each other again. They seem to always talk about pleasant subjects. This time they've been talking about beaches. Hey, wait a second. Haven't they had enough beaches for one lifetime? They also talked about learning chess. Maybe they ought to build a chess table in the near future. There's a pile of plasteel sitting on the island that we don't really have much use for. As mentioned previously, one thing we could use it for is replacing the door and building a few walls. There we go, that's the rest of the plasteel used. Now let's use some of this wood to start growing bonsai. 3 pots, that'll have to do for now. It's towards the end of the day, let's check back in on what Sky and Ordo have been chatting about. They chatted about their beliefs on life's rewards. Then they moved on to talking about love and... okay. They moved on to other subjects, brigands and boots. And then they circled back to talking about loving again. Well, when you're stuck on a desert island for so long, there's few things that are going to inevitably come up. That's one of them. Neither character is attracted to the same sex, but went on a desert island. They moved on to talking about deserts, which seems a bit on the nose. Then back to femininity, and a word about lovers. It's nice to get such deep insights into the minds of Sky and Ordo. There's definitely something going on here. Solar panel tech has just unlocked, so it's time to get electricity going in this place. We won't have battery tech for a while, but at least we can have lights during the day. Other than the lights, until we can get an electric stove going, there won't be much point in having electricity, but let's go ahead and do it anyway. May as well have it before we need it. And now we have light. One light. The smelter can go here next to the solar panel. Next up, we're going to save up enough steel for a battery and then a smelter, so we can break down all this slag. Already another shuttle has crashed on the island. This is starting to appear to be a lost type situation. There even were polar bears that traveled with one of those previous traders, but so far no mysterious bunkers have been discovered. Then again, let's not rule anything out. Who knows what'll happen in the future? This time the raiders just didn't show up. Maybe they got here and they thought better of their decision to attack. In any case, this one ended up being free steel. There's also plasteel as part of the ship, so we can take that and replace a few more walls. There we go. The walls are going to be quite a bit stronger now. And at least part of the hut will be non-flammable. Now we can start building some more bridges. It'll be a lot easier now that we have a more reliable source of wood. Ah, perfect. Another bulk goods trader has arrived, and they've brought steel. With this extra steel, we're finally going to be able to build a battery. Now that we have a battery, we should be able to keep the power running perpetually. The extra light will help with the research speed and get rid of the darkness mood penalty. That's nice at least. Now we can focus on trying to get an electric stove going and finally have cooked food. Unfortunately, the fueled stove didn't really work out since there's just not enough wood to keep it fueled. But with the electric stove, we'll be able to switch over to cook food full time. A couple more raiders have arrived. They made the odd choice of attacking with nothing but a smoke launcher and EMP grenades. Well, now that we have electricity on the island, they may have wanted to send someone to take it out with EMP grenades. Well, it doesn't really work that way, but how else do you explain these idiots? Of course, they didn't stand a chance. Can't really do much damage with a smoke launcher. Another bulk goods trader has arrived, bringing enough steel to finally build that smelter. Now we just have to undertake the task of smelting down all that slag. We should end up getting 140 more steel out of all of it. It only took almost 2 years in game to get to this point. Progress is still going to be slow, but it's going to be a lot better than it was before. Ordo dismissed the traders and they took it so seriously that they dropped all of their food in the water and they left immediately. Well, we're not going to turn down free food. Smelting down the slag gives us enough steel to build that electric stove. Now we're finally going to be able to stop eating raw food. For good this time. Hopefully. We're suddenly becoming much more civilized. Their cooking skill is still pretty terrible, and the room they're going to be cooking in has no floor, and it's quite dirty, so the chance of food poisoning is going to be pretty high. That being said, They'll be getting more nutrition out of the simple meals, and this will at least get rid of the mood penalty from eating so much raw food. Hopefully that ends up making a substantial difference in their overall mood. We'll end up getting less mood breaks overall, hopefully. Now that we can convert that slag whenever we get it, we can finally move on to building heavy bridges. The wood bridges will still be somewhat useful, but they can't really be used extensively since they can't support heavier walls or any of the crafting tables. For now, we can build just enough heavy bridges for plasteel walls and a few squares to move the research bench down. Let's make the new room the same size as the first one. It's going to take a fair bit of resources, but it shouldn't take long now that we have slightly more reliable ways of producing building materials. Well, while we were busy working on the new room, a drop pod landed on the island. Must be from one of those ships that have been crashing on the planet lately. This time it was synthread. And it even has enough to build a new duster. That'll be much better than what they're using now. Well, as long as the quality is halfway decent. Sky took a break from building the new room to work on the duster. It took her an entire day, but the duster is finished now. And it's normal quality, not bad at all. Let's get back to working on this new room. This starting room is getting really cramped and we need the space. The bridges for the walls are all finished, so now we just need a few more on the inside to hold the research bench. We can end up leaving a few holes in the floor to let them fish and to save on resources. Wow, look at that. Another rare catch. And shockingly, it's another duster. This time it's made of devil strand. First a cloth duster rare catch, and now a devil strand duster rare catch. Talk about amazing luck. Sky can equip the devil strand, and Ordo can use the synth thread. That's a nice upgrade for both of them. There we go, the new room is all walled in and roofed. It isn't completely floored, but it's enough for the research table and a bit of extra storage. Next up, we just need to get enough wood to put a few more floors in. Well, they're bridges, but they'll serve as floors. A bulk goods trader has arrived again. That's fantastic news. Unfortunately for them, there's an angry boomalope just outside the hut. And now a raid not far behind. Luckily, neither one should be particularly dangerous for them. The boomlope charged right into them. They did deal with it pretty quick, but it started a massive fire on the island. Ordo and Sky rushed out to put out the fires. And while they worked, the raider arrived from behind. Went right for the leader of the caravan. The leader was stabbed several times and they collapsed. The raider fell immediately after that from a barrage of bullets, but unfortunately it was too late. The caravan's running without the leader, and we're not going to be able to trade. Maybe at least we can tend to the wounds of the leader, get them off the map for some goodwill with that faction. Then again, it looks like they're in horrible shape, so I'm not sure that plan's going to pan out. A few days later, the two survivors were minding their own business while an emu moved in. The emu seems convinced that the island's theirs now. It doesn't really pose any threat at the moment, but if it decides to go angry and attack them, then there's going to be a pretty big issue. Let's deal with it before it comes to pass. The machine pistol should make pretty quick work of it. Well, it turns out the emu was way more dangerous than they thought. It closed the distance and leaped right at Sky. She did manage to make it away, but only for the emu to turn on Ordo. They took down the emu, but not before taking a massive amount of damage themselves. Hopefully these scratches don't get infected. Their medical skill is high enough now that they should be fine, but an infection is the last thing you want on a desert island. Lately they've been working on getting machine tech going and working towards gas operation. They don't have enough steel right now for a machining table, but they should be able to slowly gather the steel that they need. Hopefully by then, gas operation tech will be finished, and then they can start working on getting heavy SMGs as an upgrade for those machine pistols. Or rather, ideally they're going to want assault rifles since the map leans towards long-range fights, but we'll see what we can get. Dromedaries have wandered up and they're awfully friendly. It'd be great if we could actually keep livestock long term, but so far, none of the animals have survived all that long. It's unlikely the dromedaries are going to either. Well, one of them certainly isn't, since survivors need food. Poor dromedaries. And now a Thrumbo has moved onto the island. Hopefully not to live here permanently, or things are going to get a bit awkward. Not long after that, a few raiders have appeared. We could potentially try to use this Thrumbo as a defense against the raiders. We just need to anger it and wait for it to attack the raiders. As long as it doesn't break the door down. Luckily, 2 of our doors are plasteel, so if they focus on one of those, it should be perfectly fine. Just need to get a shot on it and get back inside before it charges all the way. Perfect, that worked. And it's running around angered now. Let's hope it doesn't wander too far from the base, or this is going to backfire. Well, it looked like the Thrumbo tactic worked perfectly, and it's going right for the raiders. The survivors are going to have to deal with this raider with a pistol. It's taking cover by the solar panel. At least the Thrumbo's taking out the other 2. They took out the pistol raider at the same time the Thrumbo finished off the other 2. Now it's charging right for the survivors. Now we better hurry and get back inside before it kills someone. Well, before it kills another someone. The survivors got inside just in time. They should be safe in here until it gets bored and wanders off. It didn't take enough damage to bleed out, so it might take a while. Nope, it only took a few hours, and now the survivors can go outside again. Now that the second room is mostly finished, let's do a bit of rearranging, try to maximize what we can actually store in here. It is probably best to make a few more shelves whenever we can. The tension finally exploded one night when Ordo and Sky got into an argument about their ideology. Apparently, Ordo did not like Sky trying to convert her. Previously, they've been able to resolve all their problems by talking it through, but this time, it came to violence. It was a no-holds-bar fight. There was scratching, punching, and even biting. Sky was mostly punched in the legs, while Ordo got punched in the head and bit in the leg. The most interesting part is that while Ordo found the fight angering, Sky found the fight cathartic, and it increased her opinion of Ordo substantially. The surprising part is that Ordo was the one who started the fight. After all that, Sky and Ordo went right back to friendly chatting again, this time about blackjack. Well, anyway, let's get all these wounds healed up and get everyone back to work. Well, they've been hard at work researching new techs. Gas operation finished up, and now they've got prosthetics as well. Hopefully they'll never have any need for prosthetics, but better to have it and not need it. May as well start working on microelectronics now. It is going to be a huge hurdle to try to get a high-tech research bench built. There's not a lot of room, and there's not a lot of resources. But may as well get the tech and then worry about building the bench later. An exotic goods trader has arrived. At this point we have almost nothing at all to trade, but we do have a tiny bit of silver. Let's see if we can get enough plasteel to finish building a door. We only need 2 more. 28 silver for 2 plasteel? Let's do that. Now we can replace the steel door with plasteel and get a bit of the steel back to use. A day later, several ducks have arrived on the island. Last time it did not end so well for the ducks, but certainly this time will be better. We won't be able to keep all of the ducks, but 2 or 3 should provide a few eggs. And there should be enough grass this time, hopefully. Nothing has really changed since last time, but it'll be fine. We will need to call a few of these to cut down on numbers. Keeping 1 male and 2 females seems good. And now 2 Edakeen have arrived to cause trouble. Since it's only 2, it should be relatively easy, right? Let's send Ordo and Sky out to greet them. Well, first the 2 survivors are finishing their meal. And the raiders got to the island a bit quicker than expected. They're already on the smelter, so we're gonna have to act quickly. Losing the smelter at this point would be a massive setback. It's a really good reminder to move this thing inside as soon as we can. The first Edakeen is down, but so is Ordo. She's crawling back towards the hut, but she's bleeding really badly. If Sky can't finish off this last raider, then this might be the end for our survivors. Sky was shot twice in the leg, but she managed to take out the last Edakeen before she was taken down. And thankfully the smelter survived. Now we need to act quickly and get these wounds tended before Ordo dies. That was way too close. They're both on their feet now, and their wounds are tended, but there's still a big risk of infection. Let's go ahead and let them rest for now. Get these wounds healed as quick as possible. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for updates on all future videos. For those of you who made it all the way to the end, please please consider checking out my Patreon to help support the creation of more videos like this one. You'll find the link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and see you for the next one.